when you teach, you want to inspire people to try something a little bit different, to find their own creativity, to find their own strength. And maybe they don't accomplish everything, but if they leave and they feel empowered and they feel awesome about themselves, that's it.
You're listening to the Aerial Hour, episode number 14. The Aerial Hour is a weekly podcast where I interview aerial entrepreneurs and professionals within our industry. Hello, Aerial family. I am so happy you've joined me for another episode of the Aerial Hour. Before we get right into this week's episode, I have a couple announcements to make. First up is it is currently February 18th, and if you are in the Tampa Bay area, hopefully you're planning on going to Bad to the Chrome this weekend, which is Saturday, February 22nd at Buttercup Pole Dance in Tampa, Florida. I'm going to be there, and I am so excited. So if you don't already have your tickets and you're going to be in the area, what are you waiting for? Head over to badtothechrome.com and purchase your tickets before they sell out, because they sell out every single show. And if you're not going to be in the area and you want to see what Bad to the Chrome is all about, follow us on Instagram at The Aerial Hour. We'll be going to the show a little early and giving a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to produce this type of show. And of course, I'll be posting all the amazing performances. So make sure you follow us so you can check it out too. And while I've already got you looking up stuff on your handy-dandy device, why don't we head over to beeskneeskneepads.com. Bee's Knees are these amazingly designed knee pads that allow you to put on your knee pads after you've put on your shoes. This is so important because I always forget to put on my knee pads before putting on my shoes. They're made with 2 straps, a strong hook, and a generous loop that make it easy to strap on and strip off your Bee's Knees as needed. They also come in a variety of sizes and colors, and the insert in the knee are replaceable, which if you're like me and you love floor work, you know you're going to need those replacements. Again, this is not a paid ad, but it's kind of terrible what's happening to the owner, Sarah B., currently. In addition to designing these fabulous knee pads and being a pole instructor, she's actually a teacher that's been forced to go into hiding as far as her business is concerned until she's able to resign later this year. I'm personally giving Sarah this shout out because I really love the way that she's handled this. While she has reluctantly gone into hiding as far as her pages are concerned, and all that means is that they're set to private, she's given really great ways to support her business without even purchasing something. I'll post these images in the show notes so you can hop on and share them as well, but I thought I'd read off a couple of the ways that you can help her businesses. 1, you can tell studio owners to get in touch with her about wholesaling. 2, really simple, you can Google and click on her website to create some online traffic. And 3, if you have a blog, feature Bee's Knees knee pads. Really simple, easy ways to support a fellow polar and aerial business. I love it, guys. So the real reason why you're here is probably for our next episode, and I could not be any more excited to share it with you guys. In this week's episode, I'm interviewing Heidi Coker, who lives in Atlanta, Georgia, but travels the entire world teaching pole dance. This was such a cool episode to record, and I really enjoyed every moment of our conversation. In this episode, we talk about how life and pole are so closely related, being a world touring artist and everything that encompasses, and how to become present during your practice and when you're performing. If you want to know more about this episode, you already know what to do. Head over to theaerialhour.com and check out our show notes. And please, if you haven't done so already, write us a review. These make my year, guys. So please write us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Facebook or anywhere else you can write a review about us, because it just warms our hearts. I think I've covered all the things for this episode, so I'm going to go ahead and roll the tape. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Aerial Hour. Today, I can't believe where I'm at. I am in Atlanta at Heidi Coker's home, just hanging out with her. How are you?
I'm great.
You're here.
I am here in my home.
Yes, you're here in your home.
Who knew?
I just appeared.
That's right. Magic.
Yes. First off, thank you so much for welcoming me into your space. We are sitting right next to your pole, like right now.
Yes.
And this is your training space, correct?
That is correct.
Very cool. How long have you been dancing for?
I started in 2009, so it's been 10 years.
Wow.
A little over 10 years, yeah.
And how did you find pole dancing?
I saw it on Oprah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Sheila Kelly was doing a little bit. And she was dancing, and she did like a little striptease, and she talked about how empowered she was as a female with her sensuality, her sexuality, and in the best shape of her life. And I said, sign me up for that. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah, you just went in, fell in love from that first spin?
It took a while for me to actually take a class.
Okay.
But I knew as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, I'm so into that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then I was terrified, obviously.
Yeah, why?
Hello. I mean, like, it's pole, right?
Yeah.
So I think most people have a curiosity, but also there's a little bit of a stigma. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't have any previous experience.
Right.
So there was that. And yeah, like, you know, you're going to wear skimpy clothes and dance around the pole. And like, I didn't look at myself as someone who was sexy. Mm-hmm. So the idea of like, oh, now I need to portray that. Like, what?
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And through the process, I've learned it so much more.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, when you take that first class, and so I did like twerking and chair dance, like just to kind of step into that world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how I started.
Yeah. And what were you doing before you were dancing?
Not much.
Not much.
Not much. I mean, I say that that's not true. I was a gymnast for about 15 years, so I was 21. And then the next 10 years was I was doing some breakdancing.
Okay.
A lot of like freestyle club dancing. My husband at the time was a DJ.
Okay.
So, and I was a dancing fool.
Yeah.
Dabbling with yoga, but nothing necessarily structured.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like moving my body, having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then pole came along.
What made you fall in love with pole?
I think the biggest thing was I could use my gymnastic skills and body awareness in a new way. And I got to be creative. So as a gymnast, you know, we'd have these routines and I was always tweaking and changing my routines and creating new ones. So with pole, I could do that every single time. Yeah. So it was the physical part of it as well as the creation. And I could be artistic, which I started being quote unquote, here's my air quotes, sexy, or what that meant to me. But that didn't translate well because I was trying to put on other people's version of sexy on me. So, you know, so I went through that phase.
As we do.
As we do.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And then once I kind of found my own voice, it was, you know, I can express myself and show different aspects of gymnastics and dance and, you know, capoeira and breakdancing and just use a little bit of everything. So the ability to channel all the bits and pieces of myself. Yeah. That's what I love about pole.
Yeah. I feel like it does give you so many opportunities because there's all this space around the pole that we forget about sometimes that we can occupy with those gymnastic and the gymnastic stuff moving up the pole as well. It's just
100%.
There's so diverse, so many things. Yep. How have you seen the industry change since 2009?
Feels like we've made huge leaps of change. I would say for one, the amount of tricks that we're doing. Like the level has gone from, you know, different kind of grips and then including flips. And now it's like, honestly, it's insane. Yeah. What people are doing on the pole is incredible. Yeah. And terrifying.
Terrifying.
And I even say that as like a gymnast, like, I'm okay to flip, right? Mostly. But I mean, like, it's insane. Yeah. And especially when you look at the younger generation coming up, because they're seeing this like we did as a gymnast or a figure skater, where when you develop the technique and the basics from day one, you can soar.
Yeah.
So most of us come into pole from a much older age. So yes, some of us have technique from other apparatuses, but a lot of people don't. They just come in fresh off the bat and like, here I am. But for those who are coming in with the background and the excitement of being young and not having fear, like they are doing some crazy stuff.
It is. It's very intense to watch.
It is.
It's tiring.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing some very crazy intense stuff too. It's insane, but the level of tricks, the amount of tricks have definitely changed just in the 6 years that I've been around.
Exactly.
It's totally an evolution.
But the other thing that's changed though is that we've gone from sort of being either sexual or sensual, which is beautiful. I think that's a lot of the reason people come into it, is wanting to be more in touch with that aspect of ourselves. But then also we have the sports side, not just the physicality, but like if you want to use rules and play by the rule book and use that, because that's what we do in gymnastics. We have a code of points,
right?
Figure skating, blah, 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 all those things.
Right.
So people who are comfortable with that's an avenue. There are, you can do comedy, you can do, like hip hop.
Yeah.
There are so many different styles. You literally can try them all.
Yeah.
Or, you can pick and choose lyrical or contemporary or like exotic.
Right.
It's anything you want it to be.
And then you can blend them all together.
Absolutely.
You can go from literally one to another.
Yep.
I think it was your 2015 Aerial All-Stars routine that it felt like such a combination of all the different styles. I saw breakdancing in there. I saw the sensual, sexy side. I saw the gymnastics. It's so many things put into one.
Yeah.
It's endless.
Yes.
The possibilities are limitless.
And I pulled in jeans. And
yes, you did. I was like watching it again last night because it's in my top 10 all-time favorite performances. Seriously.
Thank you.
Just so creative. But I was watching it again and being like, are those real jeans?
Those were real
jeans. Okay,
yes.
I'm going to link to this because you guys, if you have not seen it, you need to see it. But like jeans in a hoodie. That was, I
mean, the hoodie came off. But I say that because, one of the things about pole is that people bring up the fact that we wear less clothing. And for people who don't understand, we need contact points.
Right.
So the flesh is important. Yes, we can use the amount of skin that's showing as part of the experience. Of course, that's like a huge part of it.
Right.
But also we can cover all of our bits, but we still need the flesh.
Yeah.
But we can also pull in clothes.
Yeah.
As well. Which
right.
is, so those of you who maybe don't want to get, let's get naked, as I kind of jokingly say. But like, you don't have to.
No.
You can stay in clothes most of the time.
It's funny. I think about my own personal evolution, and like I started out with wearing like a lot of clothes. And then the clothes got less and less and less.
Yep.
And then I started putting clothes back on.
Exactly.
And now I'm like, I don't want to take off my pants to pull. I'm going to figure out a way to do it without
That's right. Exactly.
That's great. I also noticed that in your own space that you typically listen to podcasts instead of music. Is there a reason as to why you do that, or does that help creativity?
Yeah. I mean, when I first... I used to go to the studio and I dance. I do lots of freestyling, because it was good for my heart. And that was one of the things that drew me to pole, was just self-expression.
Yeah.
When I started pulling more at the house, and even through my own evolution in self, so not just as a poler, but as an individual, I found myself gravitating towards YouTube and podcasts and stuff where I could feed my mind. And a lot of the messages that I was hearing would feed my mind and feed my soul. So then I thought, well, if I'm not going to freestyle as much at the house, then I want to get my mind engaged. So I would be listening to podcasts while I was physically working out. Ooh. Sometimes I'd have to stop and go back and be like, okay, well, I heard what they said, but I need to hear that again.
Yeah.
So I'd go, back and listen to it again. But there was this beautiful exchange of my body getting worked out, my mind getting worked out, not just because I was thinking about what I was doing on the pole, but also like I'm pausing, I'm catching my breath, I'm cleaning the pole and listening to something inspiring. So I have all facets of my being that are getting worked out.
Yeah.
And I just love that. The other thing too, and this sort of happened later, is a lot of the stuff that I listen to, I think benefits other people, right? If I'm getting benefit from it, then someone else might listen. So sometimes when I'm polling, I'll be like, oh, I like this message. I'm going to put this message on in the background.
Yeah.
So that way, maybe they're less interested in the poll, but they like what they're hearing. And if you don't want to listen to what I'm listening to, then you don't have to have the sound on.
Yeah.
So then you can just watch. So it's a multifaceted thing.
I like
for me
that.
and for the observer and the listener.
Wow, that's so deep. I really like that though. It's so intentional. It feels like a lot of what you do is like a melting pot, trying to be the most, not efficient, but make the most of your time and do all the things.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Try.
Yeah, I feel you. How often do you train in this space?
Oh, well, I would say that I try to train every day. It really depends. A couple times a week if I can, if I'm home. Honestly, when I come home, I'm usually pretty tired.
Yeah.
So having some rest time. That being said, putting in anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour and a half when I can.
Yeah. Right. And is it kind of structured or loose, or I'm guessing it depends on what you're doing it for.
It does. If I am just home to train and get my body, like to keep it conditioned, and then I'm not training for a performance or something, I don't necessarily have a structure. I will put something on to listen to, a podcast or whatever, and just see what happens. Yeah. So if I have something in mind that I want to train, I'll start with that. But I've learned to be very fluid in my practice, because if I go in like I'm going to do flips today and the body is tired, let's be real, flips are not happening.
No.
So I will try different things and then let my body guide me. Or sometimes it's not my body, sometimes it's my mind. Yeah. Let it guide me to a certain kind of practice. So I try to be less structured and more fluid in my practice.
Do you record yourself?
Every single time.
Every single time. Why? This is important. Listen.
For a few reasons. One, most of my training is alone, period. So as much as I can feel what's going on, sometimes I'm doing things and I'm like, okay, I can feel that something's not happening right, but I don't know exactly what that is. So by going back and looking at it, I can be my own coach. The other thing is sometimes I go back and I'm like, wow, that felt awesome. And I look at it, I'm like, and not so much. But on the flip side of that is like, that was such a struggle. And then I look and I'm like, oh, that actually was better than I thought it was. Yeah. So it's a really valuable tool to guide yourself. Yeah. That being said, it took a while to be able to watch myself and not be such a harsh, critical judge.
Yeah. That's the part. I think for me, when I first started, it was very scary to record myself. Just even the thought of having to look at myself, because it felt so awkward. I felt so awkward. Sure. It didn't look awkward, but it felt very awkward. And so feeling that and being like, well, I don't want to watch that, but being encouraged to watch it and then going back and being like, oh, it's not as bad. Or, oh, I need to extend that leg here. And that's why it's so important to record yourself. Yes. And I mean, even sometimes when you're in a studio, there's so many people, a teacher can't always point out, that's right, to you. But if you're recording it, just, you can go back. So record. Yeah. It's hard. It is so hard.
The other thing too is that you learn how to step back. So I'm not looking at myself as this identity of like, needing to look a certain way. You just look, you're like, oh, my leg was bent. I didn't feel that. Right. Or like you said, I need to extend more. Or that transition, I don't know what happened, but that was magic. Yeah. How do I do that again? Right. How to see yourself a little bit differently and just use it as a tool rather than, oh, I don't like the way I look today. Right. Or, oh, it's you just use it as a tool.
Yeah. And I think it does take time to not be so harsh on yourself. I feel like I judge myself still. I mean, still I do it, but like it took me a long time to just appreciate my progress. Sure. And not get into the comparison or being like, oh, I'm just never going to get this.
Yep.
Just being like, oh, this got better today.
Exactly.
And that being able to step back has taught me in life how to be able to step back and like look at a situation and not get so personally attached to it.
Totally.
I love it. How would you describe what you do to somebody that's not in the industry?
Usually if I meet someone and they ask me what I do, and this sounds this sounds terrible as I'm about to say it. It's not, but it sounds terrible. I pause for a second and I get a feel for who they are as a person and where they are in terms of opening their mind. If I feel like, yes, this person is ready to receive the full amount of information I'm going to give them, then I will tell them I am an international pole dance instructor, competitor, and performer.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. If I feel like they, or maybe it's a time thing, like we don't have time to go into it, then I'll just say that I am a fitness instructor. Or I teach a unique form of dance and circus arts. Like it kind of depends on where the person is.
Yeah.
And I know that's a judgment, but it also depends on how much time we have to get into it. And if I feel like they're going to be shut down after I give them, oh, I'm a pole dancer, then it's like, okay, well, let's keep the doors open to have a good conversation. And maybe I can drop that in later. But for now, let's start with circus. Let's start with aerial. Let's start with something that they might be more comfortable in.
Right.
And then as they get to know me, then I can be, oh, yeah, by the way, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
So that's kind of how
I think most of us probably do that. Like, just kind of, is this a safe person to say pole dance around? Or yeah. What does a typical work week look like for you?
Usually it's a lot of travel.
Okay.
So the majority of my time is traveling. So it means traveling to a local event. I say local as in the U.S.
Okay.
Or probably 75% of my work is overseas. Teaching, I do perform, I do judging. So all of that is incorporated, as well as when I'm home. I teach out of my home, so a lot of privates. I also host intensive, so people come for an overnight or a week-long training. I do teach at Pole Instructor, which is a local studio. I do one class a week when I'm home. And then I work as a sign language interpreter as well. So I work at a local school at the moment, a couple days a week. So my weekly schedule could be many different things and all of those things.
Yeah. That's amazing. How do you schedule all of this? Is it kind of a nightmare, or do you just you're used to it and you just go?
Yeah. I mean, scheduling is difficult.
Yeah.
In my mind, and you and I talked about this earlier, it's like, oh yeah, I'm here for 4 days, then I'm on the road, and it's not a big deal because 4 days.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually a lot. So, scheduling happens way far out in advance, especially for a lot of the international travel. Like as of right now, looking at 2020, basically the year is already spoken for.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what an incredible accomplishment.
It is.
That is.
I've learned over the years that I have to book in personal time.
Yes.
Or like I know these things are going to happen somewhere in this space, so I need to block off this chunk of time until things firm up. But yes, the whole year is already spoken for, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And also a little stressful, to be honest, because there are things that I do want to do. So it's like, where do you draw the line between booking yourself because you have the opportunity to work?
Right.
And where do you allow yourself freedom to still do the things that you personally want to do?
Yeah. That's very difficult.
Yeah. And then, okay, I'm home. So can I work the next day after I just traveled? Technically, yes, I could. But I've learned, no, I need a day.
Right.
So it's a lot of pre-planning.
Okay. With your personal time that you schedule, is it like a couple of days, or does it depend on, how much time you're going to have between the two things, or how does that?
Yeah, it really depends. If I know that I'm doing a long trip, then I give myself more time when I come home. One of the things I realized is I was working a lot and not giving myself enough downtime. So I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to spend this week, somewhere else. So I was giving myself a whole week to decompress and do something personal. What happens when I'm home is like, okay, I'm home for a week, 10 days, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm home. Now I can take more clients. Now I can work at the school.
Right.
And before I know it, there's no downtime.
Right.
It's just more work.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding that personal time and downtime is something that I'm always working to find the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too.
Yeah.
It's been such an adjustment, like trying to be able to go out, and we talked a little bit about this, go out and actually explore the places that we're going to, where really I'm just tied to my computer, and like trying to balance those two things is...
Yeah. It's a journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
What makes teaching so special to you? Because you do a lot of teaching. It sounds like your whole life is teaching.
Yeah. Which is really interesting because I remember when I was working for the local school system, I had someone ask me if I wanted to become a teacher. And I was like, I'm not a teacher. Nope. And now I look at my life and like, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait a minute. I love teaching.
Yeah.
There is something about empowering others to see their own potential. It's so easy to look at someone and see their potential, but then they don't see their own gift. They don't see their own possibility. So what I try to do is create and cultivate a space where people can come in and I can guide them, but they get to go on their own journey. So when you teach, you want to inspire people to try something a little bit different, to find their own creativity, to find their own strength. And maybe they don't accomplish everything, but if they leave and they feel empowered and they feel awesome about themselves, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Like I have this quote over here behind me. It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. So that's kind of how I view teaching is I want you to try different things. Yeah, most of it's physical. Let's move our bodies different way. But like you were a badass right then. Yeah, you might have fallen on your butt, but you took a chance and you did it. And that's being a badass.
Yeah.
So that I wanted to support even more. And as I teach, it's not just pole. I'm finding that pole is a microcosm for life. So this is where we get to practice our skills. We do it because it's fun, and we do it because we have a supportive community. And then we take what we learn here, and it branches out, and it seeps into every aspect of our life. So that's what teaching is to me. And I didn't realize that at first. But now the more I do it, I want to broaden that perspective.
Yeah.
And that's actually how I view what I do.
Yeah, I love that. That is a perfect explanation of what it is. I mean, it's just so good. And that's exactly, getting to see somebody do something that they never thought they would be able to do. There's no better feeling than that.
Yep.
And it is so easy for somebody on the outside to be like, you can do this. And the person be like, no, I can't.
Yep.
And then they do it.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
just the most beautiful. Okay. So how long have you been teaching for?
I started teaching locally probably in 2010 or 11. I guess I think about my actual teaching journey when I started teaching more in the U.S., not just locally, but, doing like workshops and stuff.
Right.
And that was in 2013.
Okay.
And then I left my full-time job in 2014, the summer of 2014.
Okay.
So, we're going into 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 years.
So 4 years after you started dancing.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when you started teaching, how did you initially get those first workshops? How did you book those first? This was after you won your first competition?
Well, I was teaching at a local studio before that.
Okay.
I went in for a class and the instructor was like, you've done this before. And I was like, well, not really, but we talked.
Right.
So I started teaching locally pretty soon after I started my pole journey. But in terms of workshops, I had people reach out to me.
Okay.
And they were like, will you come teach? And I was like, what? I didn't even realize there was a pole community at that point.
Oh, okay.
So I was just doing pole and I was watching YouTube videos.
Okay.
But I was competing, but I didn't even realize that there was this whole community. I just didn't know.
Right.
So when people were asking me to teach, I thought, what would I teach? I don't even. So I started doing it because people were asking me to, and I had about zero confidence in myself and my abilities to do so. So it was almost like I was doing it because the opportunity was there, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
And then it kind of continued. So then people were reaching out from overseas, and it was like, okay, wait a minute. So I had a managerial company reach out, and I actually turned them down the first time we talked. And I was like, that's sweet. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay,
Yeah.
I think there's something here. And I took about 6 months to investigate.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of workshops, it was really, I was being approached with them.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I had a manager help me produce the workshops
Okay.
and then spread the word.
Okay. Very cool. And this came after competing,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
So when did you first start competing?
So 2010 was my first competition. It was,
Wow.
so just over a year.
Yeah.
A year and a couple months
Wow.
after I started the journey. Yeah. It was USPDF.
Okay.
Back in the day, East Coast. Yeah. And I I got second place at that one and qualified for the national one, got my pro card.
Wow.
A couple months later. And then I applied to some international ones just for the heck of it. Like here's Polar. Wow, this is amazing. I'm going to submit only because it allows me an opportunity to like put a routine together or like, it was just like, let's try this. This is fun. And then it was like, whoops.
I'm in.
Oh, wait a minute. So yeah.
Yeah. And then, so did you place in that first competition?
In the national one, yes. I was second locally.
Okay. And that's how you got your pro card?
And then I qualified to the nationals.
Okay.
And then that's,
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what does entering a competition mean for you?
Well, that's even changed through the years.
Okay.
So
at first, what did that mean? Like just putting yourself out there, or?
It wasn't even about putting myself out there, honestly. It allowed me a place to practice.
Okay.
So when I was in the studio, it was combos and I'd be like freestyling. But this was like, okay, I have some specific skills. I'd like to put them into a routine. Let's create a routine that I can submit. But it was more about the process of creation. So it was more about the process of this gives me a goal.
Okay.
The end result is not getting into the competition. It was just a tool to help me kind of set new goals for myself.
Yeah, I love that.
And and then submitting the video. And then now a lot of times you can submit the video and you get in right away. And then there are some where it's a process.
Okay.
So like you submit for the video or the competition and maybe they take the top 25 and then they go down to the top 10 or, so even now there are different formats of what that submission process looks like.
And I assume that each competition requires different things.
Correct.
But are there certain criteria for competitions that you have to meet to enter?
I think it depends on the competition.
Okay.
Some of them is just the desire to compete.
Okay.
Some of them have set rules. Honestly, it just depends on the competition.
Yeah. And it's pretty just totally different for each and every one.
Yeah, because some are very sports related. So, I mean, anyone can submit.
Right.
But then once you're in the competition, these are the rules these are the guidelines.
Okay.
If you want to do well, you need to follow these rules.
Okay. Have you found it challenging to like put those rules into your own structure, or coming from like a gymnast background, is that kind of easier for you to?
No, I found it terribly difficult.
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing about gymnastics that I didn't love.
Yeah.
Was all the structure.
Right.
So, I support the sport aspect using Code of Points because I think it's a beautiful direction that we can take our industry. I personally find it very challenging.
Yeah.
To me, it feels very limiting because I just want to do what I want to do.
Right.
So I follow the rules at first with the competitions, and then afterwards it's like, okay, I just want to share my voice.
Yeah.
So if I follow the rules, great. But it has become more of a platform for me to share different aspects of myself.
Yeah.
So rules are good if you are a rule player.
Right.
But if not, just use it as a platform to share your heart.
I love that. How do you cover expenses for competitions? Are you being sponsored in these competitions, or are you doing this yourself?
No, usually it's just myself.
Okay.
And when I first started, it was an opportunity to travel. So
Okay.
it was like, okay, so I'm going to get into a competition and it's expensive, but I get to go to Hong Kong or, wherever. So I used it as an opportunity to travel.
Okay.
But yeah, I am supporting myself through these
Wow.
competitions. Yeah. I mean, every once in a while you'll get a sponsor, but usually it's sponsorship through like product rather than finances.
Right.
And yeah, and now as I compete, obviously I'm not competing as much, but if I'm in a place, then I have workshops or
okay.
So I'm able
so that
to
balances out it a little bit. So just like thinking about some of the things that go into a competition aside from your time, because I'm sure like that's the biggest thing. You have to, if there's travel and costuming, I'm guessing entry fee to get into the competition because they have to, have the facility and everything. Are there any other like expenses that you can think of?
Yeah, those are the big ones. I mean, some people like to hire a coach.
Okay.
Even if it's just not for the whole process. I mean, some people hire for the whole process.
Yeah.
Or just to give a critical eye at the end process. A lot of people will have their music professionally cut. So unless they're doing it themselves, that might be something else they pay for.
Okay.
So yeah, the coaching, the travel, the performance entry fees, hotel, lodging, food. It can get quite spendy, to be honest. And especially depending on how far you go. So, yeah, it's expensive.
So balancing it out with the workshops is how you can make it work now.
Yep.
So do you look at this as kind of when you're traveling overseas or somewhere that's a little bit further for a competition, are you looking at it as like, this is an investment in myself and in my brand and what I'm doing? Or I just want to get out there, A
little of both.
Okay.
At the beginning of the journey, it was more about experiencing different cultures. So that was my first reason. Then it was competing because I felt like it kept my name out in the industry. Now I don't compete as much. So if I'm going to compete, then it's just, like I said, it's my voice being heard.
Yeah.
And so I'm willing to pay for those expenses because that's what matters to me.
Okay. How do you choose what competitions you enter now?
There are so many.
There's
oh my gosh.
so many.
When I first started, there was only a handful. And so it was like, okay, am I going to be sporty or am I going to be sexy? Or, there was a limited pool. Now, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's overwhelming, but it's amazing how many opportunities there are now.
Yes. The only difficulty with having so many opportunities is then you're like, okay, which one do I do?
Right.
And which one... Names used to mean something. And I don't mean that to sound negative, but it was like, oh, this competition has a particular name. And so you kind of know what to expect.
Right.
Now there are so many that it's like, oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Right.
So it's like, I can't speak to whether I just haven't heard. There are so many names out there that you kind of have to filter through. But at the same time, it gives so many more opportunities to get yourself out there.
Yeah. So do you choose for today, like ones that are going to showcase what you do best? Or are you looking for a challenge, or is it just kind of depend on where you're at? Or
depends on where I'm at. I pick them now as to like, oh, this one's going to be in, I don't know, Australia. I'd love to go back to Australia.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can get into that one.
Okay.
But yeah, competition I find to be very stressful.
Yeah.
It's a lot of devotion, not only to the training, but to, again, the voice. So I'm very picky about which ones I do these days. So
I think as you should be. I mean, at the level that you're at, you can be kind of choosy about the ones that you do. And I mean, just looking over like the last couple of years, it seems like the competitions are perfect for you and the other competitors that are in them. I mean, just the level just keeps increasing.
Crazy.
And
it's crazy.
I just love all the options.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How is training different when you do a guest performance?
I would say I train a little bit less for a guest performance, but it also kind of depends on how much time I have.
Okay.
So for some guest performances, I might just freestyle.
Okay.
And I don't want that to sound like, oh, I'm not giving it as much time. There's almost something even more special about freestyling because then I get to be in the moment with the audience.
Yeah.
And that is a different level of kind of commitment.
Yeah.
And vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
So,
an energy exchange.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on what the performance is, how much time I have to prepare, but I find them equally as nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I mean, you're almost expected to do like the same, if not more.
Well, see, that's what I find so interesting is I would look at a performance and be like, okay, people want to see certain things, which in my mind means that I need to be at a certain level all the time. And realistically, I can't do that.
Right.
So I would look at guest performances being like, okay, let me sprinkle in a little bit of my tricks. And then that even changed to like, okay, I'm just going to give you the essence of what pole dance means to me. So that might have tricks, that might not. But it's still at my core belief of what I find pole to be.
Yeah.
So honestly, yeah, it just depends on how much training I can or have the time to do for it as to how much I prepare for one. And like, if it's a local thing, then I might choose like, oh no, I'm excited about freestyling for you all. Or if it's like, this is a massive competition.
Right.
And I'm guest performing, then it's like, I know what those competitors have done. They've spent months preparing themselves. So I need to think about what can I bring? Do they want to see more tricks? They've just spent 5 hours watching tricks. Maybe I'll give them something different, another side of pole, something a little bit softer or a little bit just a different thing. So, yeah.
When you do these guest performances, do the like organizers cover your accommodations, or are you going out there for the love of it? Of the sport, you know?
Well, these days everything is pretty mixed. So if I'm going somewhere, it's because I'm already teaching.
Oh, okay, right.
Or judging. So the performing usually is piggybacking on those topics already.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's,
that makes a lot of sense. I want to talk to you about your choreography because it's genius. Your static rotations are just amazing. You have this like continuous flow where you are able to like keep movements going in a direction, which I find so hard to do sometimes. You have the stamina, you have like this incredible stamina, and then your use of props and moving from one pole to another. Are these things that you like developed over time, or have you just kind of incorporated them from your background? Or
yeah, a little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it comes from the gymnastics background and then dabbling with different other movement modalities. It also depends on what I'm inspired by at the moment. So like if I watch someone and their movement, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I want to try that.
Okay.
And then I'll incorporate that, you know, like how can I put that in between the poles, or how can I move, or how can I use this particular trick or movement that I love so much? Like, let's work into that. How can I make it interesting? Yeah, so it's both gymnastics and previous backgrounds as well as just playing around. Yeah.
Okay. And I see like a lot of storytelling in your performances. What are some important elements of storytelling to you?
It's funny because I don't think of myself as a storyteller.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when I did IPC, that was a story.
Yeah.
That was very much a story.
Yes.
And as a side note, that competition wants a story.
Okay.
So, which is usually a struggle for me because like I'm like in 2015 I did IPC and I had different things I wanted to showcase, not so much the story.
Okay.
So it was a struggle for me. This time I had a story. This was like my life story. And so that was a totally different thing. It was also me stepping outside my comfort zone. So not as much about tricks as like, no, this was some life that I went through and I need to tell this for me. So the storytelling aspect is, I don't know, it was just very personal. So I don't know that I can speak on that topic I don't want to say very well, but like, yeah, it's something I wanted to share. So that came out naturally, but if I wasn't sharing, I don't know. I need to think about that.
Yeah. Like your 2011 pole art, is that the one with the bands?
Yeah.
And then there's another one that you did with like a strap. Those felt very like a story to me, like being bound and pulling and pushing and all of that. I think you're an incredible storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
I really I don't have a favorite performance of you because there's so much. I think most people struggle with that.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for anybody that's like, I need to figure out how to choreograph a routine?
Yeah. Choreographing is so personal. I guess do what feels good to you. You know, I mean, if you have a story to tell, like a literal story to tell, then tell that story through facial expression, through body movement.
Ooh. through facial expression. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I think that's what I forget a lot. It's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
It's great.
Yeah, because sometimes when you just pause and like if you're looking away or you're raising your eyebrows or, you know, those little details tell the story. They tell of your anguish or your sorrow or your pain or your love or your joy through the subtleties of your face. But we feel that from an audience perspective or through your breath. Like when you just like, and you take that breath, like the audience takes it with you. So I guess that's how I think about story is how is your body moving? Are you feeling it in your soul, in your being? Or are you just like terrified to be on stage? Because I still feel that way sometimes.
Do you?
Oh my gosh, every time.
Really?
Yeah.
And you just go out anyways.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've learned through the years how to be in the moment. It doesn't happen every time. So I remember I would be competing and come off stage and be like, I
blacked out.
Yeah, totally. So I'd almost rather be in the moment, even if it's not perfect. Well, I don't think perfection necessarily exists except for in the imperfection of it all. But, you know, like, was I there? Did I live that? I did. Then that's all that matters.
How do you stay in the moment when you're performing? Because I'm getting glimpses of it. Like my last performance I did, and I'm not competing, but my last performance I did, I remember, I feel it. Like I can feel moments of it. I don't remember it all, but I can feel the moments of it. So how did you go from blacking out to now you're able to be there?
Well, and sometimes you might not remember like the whole thing, but it's about those moments. So taking a minute to actually like look at the pole, like before, instead of just like grabbing it.
Okay.
Like setting yourself up, looking at the pole, taking that breath, looking at the audience. Like, and I am going to say the breath again, but like literally when we can pause and have that inhale or that exhale, that 1 second brings you back to now.
Yeah.
Versus just like, go, 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 go.
Right.
Because as soon as we release, then we're in the now.
Right.
So those are the moments. Or when you're on the floor, like extending a little bit longer or actually feeling the touch of the floor. It's like those moments, which you can choreograph into your piece.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like now I'm going to go into my invert, but before I do, I'm going to like set up my body. I'm going to lift up, then I'm going to grab, then I'm going to go. Because those are the moments when you invite people into your story. I say into your story, but really you are your story.
Yeah, right.
So you invite them into the movement with you.
Oh, so gooey. I just love it.
I hope that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be so beneficial for people. That setting yourself up, just setting yourself up to be there is such a small and simple thing, but would help me. I know it will help me the next time I perform.
Yes.
And it does, it invites the audience in, it allows them to become part of you. And just thinking about like the facial expression there, I'm not sure which routine it was. I can't remember. It's in one of these videos. I'll post it. But you're like moving between the poles and you do this like head whip with the music. And it's so simple, but it made such a profound effect on the entire flow. And it's these little itty bitty things that, and again, we don't catch them unless we record ourselves. But these little things that just make the movement special.
Yes. The other thing too is that you can choreograph those in. So like you're like dance, dance, dance. This is a pause right here. This is a pause, look to the audience. This is a pause, smile. This is a pause, breathe. Like if you don't have those in there,
it's not going to happen.
That's right.
Like it can't. So you have to.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there's people who are just really innate and great with engaging with audiences and stuff. But for somebody that doesn't have a performance background, incorporating those moments into your choreography, I think could totally change the whole routine.
The other thing too is that one of the best pieces of feedback I got from 2013 pole art routine was that you did something and then you let us digest what just happened.
Yes.
So that's one of the biggest, I don't want to say problem, but now we try to jam pack our routines and people are like, just their jaws are dropped and open and they're like,
what just happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then you can be like, bam, bam, bam. Let's just take a moment, let people swallow what happened, and then be like, oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
Are you ready for more? Here we go. So it's important not just to like wow people with the insanity, but like, did you see that? You did. Great. That was a lot of work. Let me tell you, let's all take a moment
Yeah.
here. And then, so.
That's really a good point. You also mentioned that you work with private students. Are you coaching them through and helping them build their choreography, or what does that look like for you?
I have done that, but I try to turn those down.
Okay. Why?
Because choreography is to me, so personal.
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience that I don't necessarily pick up on other people's choreography very well. Or I'll do it, but I don't look like them.
Right.
So unless you have a really skilled choreographer who can give you movement that is good for your body, I find so often as I watch that I'm like, oh, they had that done. Which, for people who struggle, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
So I try not to choreograph because I try to support. So you have your choreography, this feels good. Well, what about if we tweak this?
Okay.
Or here's another idea. Let's work on your combos. But my skill set is not in the creation for others, but in the support of others. So you have what you're doing, you like it, let's add to that. Let's work within those realms. But I don't like creating for other people. It just doesn't, I want to be a team member with them.
Yeah.
I don't want to create it for them.
Right. It's hard to move somebody else's movements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are people who are really good at that.
Right.
That's just not my skill set.
Yeah. And aside from that, what other types of teachings are you doing in home?
I mean, mostly, it's pole. So people wanting to come in and work on, usually people come for like the really crazy tricks where they need spotting, or maybe they don't have enough support in their local community with the technique or whatever.
Right.
So usually it's that kind of stuff. But I mean, like handstand stuff.
Okay.
Any pole related movement I'm down for supporting. It just depends on what the person is looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whether you can meet that.
Yeah. So it could be the insanity or just like general movement. Like I'm coming back from an injury and I've lost my pole mojo. Like how can I still do pole, but like work into it softly again? So it's really anything pole related.
Okay.
I do. It's just not set choreography.
Yeah. So you just mentioned injuries. How do you treat injuries? That's really interesting that you're teaching other people like coming back from an injury. How do you personally treat your injuries?
So I went through several years basically from overtraining, like really having a lot of shoulder issues, and I do a lot of PT and then get injured again and the whole cycle continues. So now my PT is a constant practice.
Okay.
And then I have to be very attentive to like when I push my boundaries of overuse. So I also have a lot of body work done. And then also like, I know those crazy moves, they don't feel good on my body, or the training of them takes so much that I'm going to get overuse or repetitive use injury. So most of the pole that I do is like kind of low key playing around, feels good to the body. And then as soon as I notice a tightness or an old injury kind of getting aggravated, I stop. I make sure that I have body work done and I try to keep everything strong. So I haven't had an injury in years.
Really?
I had, my elbows were flaring up, but again, I know that was from competition training and touring at the same time. And I was able to manage that. But I haven't had any like setbacks that have kept me out of the industry or anything.
How long did that take you before you were able to start managing it?
Years.
Okay.
Okay. So when I first, probably, I don't know, 2010, 11-ish until 13 or 14 was when I was having a lot of issues that I didn't really catch on, like, oh, this is a full-time practice, how I need to take care of my body. So, I guess 2013 was a big step in consistently practicing my PT. But yeah, it took a good number of years. Yeah.
We pole dancers aren't very good at resting.
The other thing too, though, is that I think when we go into pole, we think it's like big muscle groups. We think biceps, triceps, quads, core, but we're asking our body to grip, twist, pull, lift, and then do crazy, insane things on these itty bitty little muscles. So we unintentionally hurt them but we didn't realize they weren't strong enough.
Right.
So I think that for those people who are just starting, or even those of us who've been in the practice for a while, like maintaining those little muscle groups is so important to then have a safe space for our body to move and not get injured and hold ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do cross training? No.
I actually don't do anything else.
Okay. But you incorporate so much into this that I imagine, like, it's pole, but it's also so much more.
Yeah. I mean, like I do my shoulder PT and then I kind of add in some creative like core exercises.
Okay.
So, but that is basically my cross training.
Okay. Yeah.
I might do a yoga class every now and again, but
yeah, PT, I mean, that is.
Yeah. To be fair, I should probably invite other movements and other training into my practice, but based on timing, I choose other things. So I can't fault myself for not cross training, but the reality is that I choose other things.
Yeah, I get you.
So yeah,
that's great. How did you build your private clients? Is that just people seeing you online and being like, I want to work one-on-one, or promoting, or?
Mostly people reaching out.
Okay. That's
or
great.
Maybe we do a workshop and they're like, wow, your particular teaching style really suited me.
Okay.
And then I say, well, if you want to come down and do more training, like this is where I am. This is how it works. Yeah. So it's mostly people reaching out to me.
And you mentioned at one point you had a manager. You don't now. When you book yourself at a studio, do you use a contract, or how do you negotiate like your rates and promotion and how many people and all that?
I use a lot of the same numbers and guidelines that I used when I worked with the manager.
Okay.
In terms of like numbers. And honestly, a lot of that is sort of set in the industry.
Okay.
I don't want to say set, but we have sort of generic guidelines.
Okay.
I do use contracts, although not necessarily with every client.
Okay.
Kind of depends on the other person as well. Some people feel better when there are set guidelines and set structure.
Right.
Other people, it's good on just faith-based.
Yeah.
I think it depends on your comfort level.
Right.
In terms of numbers, there are some standard industry guidelines that we have gone by. But what I've learned through the years is that doesn't necessarily work anymore.
Okay.
So where it might work in some places, if the studio owner is like, hey, we'd love to have you, but here's the deal. We can't support these numbers or this cost. For me personally, I would much rather have the opportunity to work with them and adjust my end, or let's find a happy medium. Like what works for you? Like, yeah, I can do that this time.
Yeah.
Because some cities can't uphold, the same numbers or the same cost. And so I try to be I've learned to be flexible through the years.
Yeah.
So really it's a case per case basis.
Okay. In the times that you do contracts, what are some like things that you must include in that?
You want to talk about travel.
Okay.
Sometimes I pay for my own travel. Sometimes they cover it, or maybe there's a stipend.
Okay.
Where you're staying, what does that look like?
Okay.
How many hours are you doing? Like, are you going to be able to support yourself financially with your numbers, or how many hours you're doing? I mean, those are the big things.
Yeah.
And again, every place is different.
Right.
So are you going to a smaller studio where it's like, okay, yes, you can work here, but maybe I'm paying a rental fee to borrow the room, and that might be in their end of the contract. Okay. So that's something they present to me.
Okay. So just case by case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course you have insurance. What type of insurance do you have?
It's just a general liability that I use with insurance for pole dancers.
Okay.
And yeah.
No issues, just
nope.
Yep. But it's important to have.
It is important to have.
Yeah. I think it's something that just me being an outsider, it's not necessarily something that I would think of that you would need, but you absolutely need it.
Yep.
All instructors should have insurance.
Yes.
When you do travel, how long are you typically traveling for? Do you have like a set where you're like, I can't go past this amount of time, or?
6 weeks is usually my max.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot. For me, it's a lot.
Yeah.
There are other people who do much longer stints.
Right.
I mean, I have a home and I love being home. I have my kitties.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere from in a weekend up until 6 weeks.
Okay.
As like this upcoming year, I'm 2 to 4 weeks is my preference.
Okay.
I do have a 6-week one, and that will be pretty heavy duty for me.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, there will be some longer ones. It's just a lot. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of time on the road.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to go in shorter stints.
Okay. How has traveling changed you just as a person?
Traveling is amazing. So I grew up traveling, which was great because I think for children especially, to see how other parts of the world live, it really opens their eyes. Traveling allows you an opportunity to not only be in different places, like literally the geography is different, the languages, the people are different, the cultures are different. You get to open your mind, expand your mind. You get to see how, even though we might be different in our day-to-day life, like we talked about earlier, overall, most people just want to connect and have a good life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that can look differently to different people.
Yeah.
But in general, it's like they just want to meet people and love their families and enjoy their work and eat good food and explore. And so when I travel, I get to meet people and do those things. And what I've really found is as much as the traveling from the external perspective of like seeing like the temples in Thailand or like which feeds my soul.
Yeah.
The other really cool thing is that I get to connect with people all around the world. So we get to sit down and like really have a beautiful conversation, like what's really going on in your world, like not just the pole, but like what's really happening.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like that is so beautiful. And traveling allows that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you just go to a coffee shop and you're having coffee somewhere different and the smell is different and the bustle of the day is different.
Right. The conversations around you. It's
exactly. And anytime you leave your own comfort zone and your usual pattern of your day-to-day life, like even it just gives you such a richer experience when you do go back home.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, I love my life. And it's just a different take on things, and it's incredible.
It's so full circle because like it's all about taking risks.
Yep.
And pole itself, aerial itself is all about taking risks.
Exactly.
And how taking these risks seem very small when we're doing them, but it makes us more confident to take risks in the real world.
That's right.
So good.
It's awesome.
It is. Do you have any advice that you'd offer somebody that wants to make this a career?
I do.
Yeah.
Probably not the advice they want to hear.
That's okay.
So one of the biggest things when I was researching, okay, I'm about to leave the security of my benefits, my health insurance, my day-to-day routine, everyone was like, wow, follow your passion. Do what you love. Yes. And I was like, oh, okay. Pole was my outlet. It was my outlet for release, for channeling my frustration from day-to-day life, and it was beautiful for that. As soon as it became my job, it was no longer my outlet. And I was not prepared for that. It became stressful, overwhelming, and I did not want to do it anymore. So, and I shared this with someone, and it was actually the first person that I shared it with, and I wish I could remember who it was, but it's irrelevant. And what they said to me was, oh, silly you never make your passion your form of income. And I was like, well, oh, damn. Where were you the last 6 months when I was researching this?
Yeah.
Now, to say that is sort of a catch-22 because you do want to follow your passion and you do want to be passionate about what you're doing, and the money will follow. But just be aware that if you are someone, so I love to create and explore my body, and it was my way to, like I said, just kind of, it was my release, it was my outlet. Then it went to, well, now I don't have time to do that. I'm training other people, or I'm performing or getting ready to perform, but I've been training everyone else. So now my training is less. Yeah. I have the time to train, but I'm exhausted. And if I train now, I am going to injure myself. So finding the balance is huge. So I don't know. I've talked with a few people who are like, I want to make pole my full-time thing. And I'm very cautious to tell them, that's great. Just make sure that you have high boundaries, because otherwise you will lose a very important part of what it means to you, and then that's gone.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends who have been in the industry for a while, and they're like, I love pole, but I'm not in love with it like I used to be.
Yeah.
So I would just be cautious. Maybe try doing it part-time. So try maybe teaching on the weekends, or teaching in other areas where you still have the stability of your other incomes, and you can kind of get a feel for what it's like to teach.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, that said, wouldn't change a thing?
I would not, absolutely. But it took me years to find that balance again. And even now, if I think about competing, it's like my anxiety starts to come up, and it's like, okay, well, instead of thinking about, what I think people want to see from me, it's going to be, okay, what can I offer? What do I want to share? So, when you go into the teaching world of pole, think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like that. That's good advice. I think that's good advice for anything. If as soon as you take what you love and you have to do it for work, it becomes that.
Right.
I had no idea how much of my mental health was tied to pole and aerial, and just moving. That it was my outlet, that it was a way for me to express myself. And when I left my pole and I don't have it anymore, I've been going nuts. And I had no clue how much it did. So not having that outlet anymore, and then you're having to do it.
Yep.
That's a lot. Yep. It's a lot.
The other thing to also share about that is that I have very high expectations of myself. And that comes from years of gymnastics and all the stuff that goes with that. So that's also just my personal reflection. Could I pole and still keep the love of it? Yes. It's just that I had an expectation to always be performing at the most insane level. So that's why it was hard for me to train all the time and do all the things and teach. Yeah. So I say that from my perspective, as I've learned to release from some of the insanity of the tricks and just do less of them and do more like just what feels good. That's an easier place to balance.
Yeah.
So just that's my personal reflection versus that doesn't speak for everyone.
Right. Yeah. And it comes from experience. For sure. For sure. Okay. Well, we're at the fun part now. Now we just talk about fun stuff. We have a mutual friend who I love so, so much, Blythe. And when I told her about this show, she was like, you got to talk to Heidi. But I reached out to her before the show and was like, tell me some fun stuff about Heidi. And she said, you love to cook.
I do.
So what are you cooking? What's your favorite thing to cook right now?
Well, kind of like pole.
Okay.
So pole, there are so many different aspects of it. And I'm always trying to create and do different things. Same thing with cooking. So I don't have any set things.
Yeah.
I am a recipe whore.
Okay.
So I love going on like Pinterest or certain blogs and just looking at recipes and then being like, oh, that's a really great suggestion. I'm going to use that and then do my own thing. So cooking is also a form of meditation for me. So it's a project start to finish that will take a certain amount of time that I can focus, do. I love baking. I love cooking for other people, but I don't have anything set necessarily that I gravitate towards. And it's just a lot of creation.
Yeah. You're very free spirit, so that makes sense. Just a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. You got it. Yep.
And your kitties.
Yes.
Tell me their names.
Piccolo, and he is 19.
Oh my
He's going to turn 20 this year. And Slater.
Yeah.
He's 11 or will be 11 soon in April, I guess. Yeah.
And you love your kitties.
I do.
They're on the gram.
They are on the gram.
It's so great. I think we've had dogs and cats on most episodes of this show.
Yep.
So at home.
Yep.
And What is Fearless Friday? I see
yes.
Fearless Friday. Tell me about it.
So I wanted a place where we could talk about our struggles in life. And as a society, we're getting better about doing that now than we were a few years ago. But the reality is life is hard. And we all have a story. So I wanted a place where we could talk about our struggles and how we overcome them or overcame them. Because people are empowered by that. And I wanted a place where people could realize that they are not alone in their journey. So it was a way to be fearless in finding yourself. And the big thing for me was I was with a partner for 20 years, and he was my best friend, but he also had a very severe drug addiction. And I've shared this story before, but through his addiction, I lost myself.
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to maintain life and cope and all the things.
Yeah.
And then through our divorce and then eventually his death, like I lost myself in him. And then I had to figure out, who am I? Like, where did I go?
Yeah.
And we're always here.
Yeah.
But we layer upon other people's issues and their struggles. And we layer over ourselves, and then we can't feel who we really are. So I wanted to share part of my journey so that other people could be maybe inspired, maybe empowered. So through my own process, the slogan came to me. And honestly, I've not shared this. I'm going to share this now.
Yeah.
I feel led to. So I was on a psychedelic journey. And I was actually laying right here in my living room on this big fluffy white floor, white carpet.
Yeah.
And I was crying, and the words, be fearless. Actually, it was be fierce, but it was be fierce in finding yourself. And I was weeping, and I scribbled it down. And a lot of my journey has been about learning how to become in touch with my femininity again. So as powerful women, we live in a very masculine world. And I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a moment, if that's
please,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. We live in a very masculine world. And hi, baby. I wanted to be in touch with who I was as a female and rise in my female power. So fierce was too masculine. So fearless. And it's not about fearless as having no fear. It's fearing less. So in my journey of raising my feminine energy so that we can change the world, because we can.
We are.
We are. Thank you. Yeah, we are. So through that journey of finding my own inner balance through ego of the masculine, the feminine, and being fearless and raising my own energy, that was it. That I realized, like, that's the message. That's my message. That's everyone's message. So, yeah, I put the phrase on a shirt and invited people to share. And people have shared about their sexual trauma, their abuse, their weight loss, their personal insecurities, their pole journey. I've had non-pole dancers on. I had a beautiful woman. She actually helped me with pet sitting one time. And she talked about plucking her chin hairs.
Oh.
And I had to laugh because she's like, I've never had a daily practice. I am a yoga teacher, and I just, people have all these things. And she said, my chin hairs have become my daily practice. And she's in her 60s, and I'm like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's just a way for people to realize that we are all powerful beings. And when we are vulnerable and we share our story, we become empowered in ourselves, and we empower others to step into their power and to share themselves.
Yeah.
So as a side note, it's really hard to get people to share on Fearless Friday.
Really?
Yes.
That's shocking.
Oh my gosh. I ask people to share, and they're like, well, but I don't have a story. And I'm like, everyone has a story. Or they're like, I'm not good enough, or
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not, and that's when we go into those stories,
Right,
right?
right.
We all have a story in our head. It's not the truth, but it's
Right.
the verbiage is there. So I would encourage people, if they have a story that they want to share or they want to encourage others, the only requirements are taking a photo of yourself in the shirt and then just send me your message.
Awesome.
That's it. But we're coming up on a year, and I'd like to do something special. I don't want to say what it is yet, but I do have an idea in mind for sharing the first year. And
I'm looking forward to that.
Yay.
I really appreciate those stories and a lot of the positive stuff that you, not just positive, the authentic content that you put out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you. And now, what is your favorite performance that you've ever done? That's really hard. You have a lot. And they're all really good.
Well, thank you. I enjoy a few of them for different reasons.
Okay.
2011 was sort of like my breakthrough.
Okay.
And that was a really big deal because I really liked the concept of working with the bands.
Yeah, right.
So
And that was Pole Art 2011.
Yep,
Okay.
correct. 2013 Pole Art was a big deal just because that one really felt in the moment.
So cool.
Thank you. And I remember before we flew to Finland, I was sitting out on the porch crying because nothing was coming together. It was all feeling like a hot mess. Oh, yeah. And I was like, and I was really incorporating a lot of Chinese pole.
Right.
And I thought, are people going to think this is dumb and stupid? Like I had this crazy story in my head. And, but it came together and it felt so nice. So that was one of my favorites. And then 2015, the one that you mentioned, the Australia All-Stars, just because that was me. Like that was, especially at that time, like I had a lot of like, kind of energy, and I could use the breakdancing.
Right.
It was a different side of me, and I loved, and I got to use drum and bass, which was connecting my love of music.
Right.
And then this last one, IPC 2018, that one was a big deal because that was the first time like I produced the music with a friend of mine. I wrote the poem. All my friends had speaking engagements. Like from start to finish, that was not just my story, but that was our story. That was just because I've talked to so many women who they've had troubling times and we rise. And so that was our story. And so that was just that was a beautiful experience. So that one was one of my favorites as well. Yeah.
So those ones?
Yeah.
That's very funny because those are the 5 that I listed.
Oh.
I literally.
Amazing.
I think my favorite is probably the Aerial All-Stars from 2015. The head spin.
Yeah.
There's just so many different elements, but then the 2011 Pole Art, the 2013, literally, and then the championship.
Yeah.
That's just such an incredible journey.
Yeah.
What's your favorite performance of someone else? It doesn't have to be forever right now or whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, there are so many amazing artists. It's hard to choose. I love watching Yvonne Smink.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and I don't know that I have a favorite necessarily of hers, but I really just appreciate, the other thing is she's so dedicated and devoted to her craft and developing herself as a dancer. So I have so much appreciation for that.
Yeah.
So I love her performances. My gosh, there's so many good artists out there.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick.
I like that you picked her though, as one, because I see the influence, you know, like I see the similarities and like that continuous flow thing. You guys both do so well. It's amazing. How do people reach you?
I'm Heidi Coker on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and HeidiCoker.com is my website.
Awesome.
I am on Patreon. Those are my places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say thank you enough. This was just the best. And thank you for being such a bright light in this community. Your spirit just shines. And I think you do a lot of really positive things. So thank you so much for welcoming me into your home. And this was a blast.
This is a pleasure. And can I just say that thank you for showing up at 8:30 in the morning.
I'd literally get up at any hour for Pole, especially for you. Yeah.
That was awesome. So,
My
and
pleasure.
thank you, because you are continuing to spread the word and talk to different people, and it's beautiful. So it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode just as much as I did recording it. If you want to know more, head over to the show notes website at theaerialhour.com and check out all the details about this episode. If you want to know more about the show or see where we're headed next, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Aerial Hour. I think that's all I have for today, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye. You're here.
I am here in my home.
Yes, you're here in your home.